If you like to talk about combat sports and you want to join the discussion, click the subscribe button below and the bell notification icon next to it and join Knucklehead Nation. What's going on, Knuckleheads? Thank you for joining me for this Tony Harrison versus Jermell Charlo 2 preview prediction live. This is Keep It Clean with Fighters Rep. I'm sorry I didn't come on Wednesday. I had some family obligations, but we did get you guys that sweet interview with Andy Ruiz's coach, Manny Robles. If you haven't checked it out, definitely go back in the channel, check it out. Really an eye-opening interview. I mean, he really just emptied it all out, let it all out for us, and I was really surprised by how honest and authentic he was, not really doing any sort of damage control, just telling it like it is. Something I can really appreciate from the sport of boxing, where we get, kind of screwed over with BS and we don't really get the truth all the time. But nonetheless, a great interview. I appreciate all of you that watched it, and definitely please subscribe if you haven't already. So let's move on to tomorrow's fight, Tony Harrison versus Jermell Charlo 2. This is the preview prediction. This fight has been a brewing with bad blood for so long, and I just cannot wait to watch this fight. I think this is a fantastic fight for boxing because, ladies and gentlemen of Knucklehead Nation, I believe a star was born the last time these two fought, when Tony Harrison stripped Jermell Charlo of his WBC light middleweight title last year, December 22nd. So it's almost a one-year anniversary. We're doing it again, and I think a star was born in Tony Harrison because, like I said, I'm saying a star was born because, man, this guy can talk the talk and this guy can walk the walk. He's just been absolutely hilarious on the mic. We've been looking for personalities like this in boxing, I think, for a minute. I mean, he reminds me of a very clever, sort of very funny, kind of Conor McGregor type, but, more realistic, a little bit more toned down, but more realistic. And, a guy at the end of the day who can really fight. And a guy who is so deep in Jermell Charlo's head. I mean, I know that's cliche, and a lot of people say, oh, he's deep in that guy's head. He's living rent-free in that guy's head. But Tony Superbad Harrison is so deep in Jermell Charlo's head, you guys, that it's just ridiculous. And, Jermell Charlo is, to his credit, showing a modicum of composure, at the weigh-ins. He's still talking tough, trying to look like the tough guy, and I guess that's his shtick, or that's just the way it is. I don't know. But Tony Superbad Harrison has played every single mind game in the book to a T against Jermell Charlo. He's always making fun of the guy. He came into weigh-in today with a cornball t-shirt. It was a ball of corn on his shirt, a picture of a huge ball of corn. I absolutely love this guy. I think, he's refreshing for the sport. He's a guy who was brought in, I think, no doubt, to lose to Jermell Charlo the first time. Showed that he's got a high boxing IQ, beat Jermell Charlo, and, has been basically teasing Jermell Charlo about it for an entire year. And it's got Jermell Charlo, completely invested in this fight. Now, will that emotional investment that Charlo has in this fight come in against him, or will it play in his favor? That remains to be seen. But I do think that Tony Harrison is definitely in Charlo's head if that's what he was trying to do. So we've got TB Boxing Addict. Thank you so much for joining the chat, my brother. We will be talking about the DAZN fight tomorrow. He's asking if I'm watching the DAZN disaster. I'm not sure why why the broadcast, he says the broadcast started over while it's live. I'm not really sure what's going on there, but I definitely did want to discuss tonight's fight between Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. and Danny Jacobs tomorrow. But first, I wanted to touch on this Tony Harrison versus Jermell Charlo 2 fight, and we will discuss Chavez Jr. versus Daniel Jacobs tomorrow after the Harrison Charlo fight. As you guys know, we go live immediately after the fights. Sean Newton Boxing is saying it's a solid card. Last I checked, we had Maurice Hooker fighting, but I'll get back on that in a minute. But like I said, I wanted to go through the tail of the tape real quick for Harrison Charlo 2. A very exciting fight for me because I really like the way that Tony Harrison's personality has kind of built up throughout this build-up of a fight. And we're going to hit up the tail of the tape. We're going to preview these guys. We're going to tell you guys, who we think is going to win and what we think each guy has to do to win the fight. So let's go ahead and get into that real quick. We've got Jermell Charlo and Tony Harrison. Charlo at 32 wins and 1 loss. Tony Harrison 28-2. So, the records are pretty similar. A big difference you'll see is, let's see here. I think this information, no, this is correct. So, Tony Harrison actually has a much higher knockout percentage than Jermell Charlo. I don't think he's got the same resume, if I'm being honest, but his knockout percentage is much higher at 70% over Jermell Charlo, who's at 48%. And that's kind of strange because Charlo is the one that's always depicted as the knockout artist. So I think that's kind of weird. But, Jermell Charlo, even though he has a much lower knockout percentage, is considered the knockout artist in this fight. So, again, 28-2 is Tony Harrison with 21 knockouts versus Charlo, who's 32-1 with 16 knockouts. And I do believe Charlo is more of the knockout artist, more of the physical, more powerful guy. But Harrison has gotten more knockouts probably because his resume is a bit lighter. As far as their height goes, Tony Harrison does have a bit of a height advantage. He's 6'1" versus Jermell Charlo's 5'11". Now, Tony Harrison, with that 2-inch height advantage, that could aid him. He is more of a boxer, technically, than a puncher, the way Jermell Charlo is, and he's going to need to utilize these physical advantages, and I believe he does have the boxing brain to do that, but more on that in a minute. Their reach. The reach is another big advantage for Tony Harrison, listed at 76.5 inches versus Jermell Charlo's 73 inches. I mean, so we're talking about a guy with a 3.5-inch reach advantage in the same weight division, and where the height difference is 2 inches. These are advantages that I believe Tony Harrison will be able to utilize to his advantage with his boxing brain. Both orthodox fighters and both about the same age. I mean, actually, it looks like Tony Harrison is just slightly younger than Jermell Charlo. So there you have it as far as the physical attributes go. Now, with regards to the tail of the tape, I do think that in order to win this fight, Jermell Charlo is going to have to put a lot of pressure on Tony Harrison. He did buckle him a couple of times in the last fight, and I do think that he has the potential to hurt Tony Harrison, especially considering the fact that Harrison has been out for a year. But Harrison has a good boxing brain on him. He's very sharp. He throws a lot of straight punches versus Jermell Charlo's more looping punches. And I think that's what makes this an exciting fight. It's a boxer versus a puncher. But anyway, Jermell Charlo is definitely going to want to stay in the pocket and I think try to bang Tony Harrison out of there, use his jab to get in on the inside while trying to slip and not getting caught with the jab on his way in, which happened to him a lot. I felt like he ran into quite a few jabs. And also, he can't stand there and admire his work. I mean, he got caught a bunch of times with straight punches after, he would land his own because he was standing there to admire his work. I don't think that that's what he's going to be able to do or should do in this rematch against Tony Harrison. As far as Tony Harrison goes, I think he's going to just have to fight a very disciplined, high IQ technical boxing fight. He's going to want to throw a lot of straight punches. He's going to want to counter Jermell Charlo as he comes on the inside, try to fight him at bay, use his reach advantage, use his height advantage, land big shots as Jermell Charlo tries to come in order to keep him off of him. And so, that's basically it. I mean, but what makes this fight exciting is that these guys are very passionate. You can tell they both really want to win. They're very competitive. And again, a long sort of technical boxer versus a slightly shorter boxer puncher. It's going to make for some explosive action tomorrow in Ontario, California. I was going to say Canada. Ontario, California. It's a fight I would have loved to go to, but unfortunately with the holidays coming around, I've got a lot of family obligations, so it doesn't look like that's in the cards for me. But nonetheless, we will go live immediately after the fight to discuss what happened with that fight. Before I give you guys my prediction, I just wanted to go ahead and throw a little shout out to Fighters Rep 9. We are putting the card together. It's almost complete. We've got some absolute killers on the card. And we've basically gone against putting it on Fight TV. We've decided we're going to air it live and free on YouTube. We're going to keep it free to try to continue to build what we believe is the best kickboxing promotion in the world. Or soon to be the best kickboxing promotion in the world. We should have around 16 fights. You guys can catch it, right here live on YouTube. And all we ask is that you guys donate to the channel and help me continue to not only build the channel, but also to build the promotion. We are the only kickboxing promotion in the whole state of California. And we're also doing pro shows now. This will be our first pro show in February, a Pro-Am, where we're mixing the best pros and the best amateurs in an attempt to develop the future. So definitely, feel free to donate to the channel in the super chat. Get your Fighters Rep gear below in the links below. That helps. Or click the Amazon affiliate link and purchase something from Amazon, and we'll get a cut of that. So now to the prediction, knuckleheads. This is a very tough one to call, and I do believe this is about as close of a fight as you can have. You've got a more active Jermell Charlo, who's not coming off of an injury, trying to redeem himself against a guy who beat him and is coming off of an injury in a 1-year layoff. That plays a huge factor, I think, into making this fight really even and almost slightly favorable to Jermell Charlo. But the only thing is, Tony Harrison beat Jermell Charlo over the course of 12 rounds. This wasn't an Andy Ruiz, Anthony Joshua situation where, the guy got knocked out in the upset. No, this was a situation where the guy got outboxed for 12 rounds and 3 judges saw it. And Jermell Charlo just couldn't do anything to change that result on that night. And I believe that the win for Tony Harrison on that night was justified. I do think he won that fight. So that being said, I do think that even though Harrison is coming off of a 1-year layoff and did, tear ligaments in his ankle, and we don't know what condition he's in, that despite all that, Tony Harrison has a win over Jermell Charlo, a win that I believe to be a legitimate win where 3 judges saw him win that fight. That being said, knuckleheads, this is such a close fight, but I'm going to go with my heart, with the guy that I actually have a slight bias towards, I'll admit, and I'm going to pick Tony Harrison for this fight. I think that this guy's a rising star in boxing. I hope to see more of him. That's not to say I don't hope to see more of Jermell Charlo, because obviously he's a good fighter and he'll be competitive as well. But I'm going to go with Tony Harrison. I believe these guys are about even. I think Charlo is the more physical guy, whereas I think Tony Harrison is the sharper puncher, more technical. So, I got to go with technique usually. Skills pay the bills. I got to go with Tony Super Bad Harrison, knuckleheads. That's who I think is going to win this fight. So let's see what's going on here in the chat now. because people continue to message me. Sean Newton says, boxing, it's a solid card. He says, they always break it into 2 parts, free on YouTube, and then the Zone app part. TB Boxing Addict said, been skipping, and the live broadcast cut back to a previous undercard fight and clicked back. Weird. So it looks like the DAZN app is kind of messing around with TB Boxing Addict over here. And Sean Newton, thank you for joining the chat. By the way, guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, the bell notification icon next to it. I really appreciate if you guys are able to do that. So let's see here. Sean Newton Boxing said, Julio Cesar Martinez Aguilar versus Christopher Rosales on now. A great matchup. Martinez is a monster. I'm definitely going to log off in a minute here and go check it out. You got me hyped now, Sean Newton. But I definitely wanted to give you guys that prediction. Again, be sure to join us tomorrow immediately after the fights. We're going to be going live. And, that's pretty much all I got for you guys. So, I appreciate you guys joining. Sorry I had to keep this kind of short, but I do want to watch the fights, and we will meet up tomorrow. If you aren't drinking your whiskey already, pour yourself a glass. Big cheers to you guys and much love. Thank you guys. And hey, until tomorrow, keep it clean, knuckleheads.